What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another live fantasy football mock draft for you back on ESPN with a 12-team full-point PPR mock where we will be selecting from that third overall position. As you can see, we have got everything ready to go, just waiting for this thing to kick off. And while we do, a quick reminder, if you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, let us hear it in the comment section along with any questions you guys might have. We will do our best to answer them. And lastly, check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. And while you're there, get yourself a copy of the 2021 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Everything you could want at a great value. Top 150 overall player rankings in standard and PPR formats. Individual player bios, tiers, projections, along with general fantasy advice. Again, details in the description. But with that being said, let's get into it because the first two picks have been made, which means we are on the clock. And here, this is probably going to be one of the first times with the third pick overall that I'm going to be going in the direction that, I'm considering. Right now, it's either Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara. And I'm going to go maybe in a little bit of a surprising twist. I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara here, specifically after the injury to Michael Thomas. It's my belief that it's going to be a situation for Alvin Kamara where he's going to get so many targets in the passing attack, even if Taysom Hill is the quarterback. I just think that his ceiling is going to be, again, obviously a lot higher, his floor a lot higher. So I'm really excited about that prospect. Obviously, I could have gone Dalvin Cook, but I specifically wanted to, mention Alvin Kamara here. The first two picks were Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry. To me, Derrick Henry doesn't really have any business being the second overall pick in full-point PPR scoring. I would rather take Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara ahead of him. But look, either way, he's got the highest rushing upside, arguably, in the entire NFL. So I understand why he's going to be a top 5 running back. But again, I just wanted to shed some light here on Alvin Kamara. You could argue, all day whether we could have gone Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook. It's kind of a coin flip situation. Kamara, unfortunately, due to that Michael Thomas injury, you never want to see it happen that way. But I do believe his rankings and his projections kind of went up a decent amount, especially in the receiving category, which obviously, since this is PPR scoring here, it's going to be a big boost for him. But Dalvin Cook, again, can't go wrong with that pick either. Great dual threat running back, great pass catcher, great rusher of the football. Then you see Ezekiel Elliott being selected 5th overall. I like to see some of that love for Zeke. He's somebody that I was saying was being kind of undervalued in the first round. At certain points, he was going like in the 7th, 8th pick overall, which to me was way too low. So happy to see him over there with that 5th overall pick. I think that's probably where it's kind of going to settle for Ezekiel Elliott. I've got no problem taking him at that point in time. Then Jonathan Taylor, then Saquon Barkley. And you notice Saquon Barkley falling to the number 7 spot. Maybe it could fall a little bit lower, but I don't think it'd be by much, maybe by like a pick. Obviously, the concern is that Saquon Barkley might not be 100% ready for week 1, or that he's going to be on a snap count, something like that. And, that's a fair concern. But when you fast forward, I would say that he, in pretty quick periods, is going to find himself, in his normal role. So right now, it's just a lot of speculating. So that's the tough part with Saquon Barkley. Then Travis Kelce, the first pass catcher off the board. Now, if you noticed when we first began, Travis Kelce was ranked like the 3rd or 4th overall player for ESPN on these rankings, which I really don't agree with. There's a lot of other running backs that I'd have above him. So for me, Kelce, sure, he's a first-round selection, probably more so towards the end of the first round. Then Tyreek Hill. Again, with Tyreek Hill, I love Tyreek Hill, but you could argue Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams now that we know for sure, even though I've been telling you guys that Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams aren't going anywhere for this 2021 season for, I feel like, ages. But again, now Devontae Adams' ADP is going to go back up again. It's just one of these kind of seesaw type of situations. For 1 week, it kind of drops, then it normalizes again. So don't worry about that. He's a tier 1 wide receiver. Then Austin Eckler, I love to see that at the beginning of the second round. I knew that we wouldn't be able to get him. But anyway, after the Tyreek Hill selection, we see Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones. I'd much rather prefer Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler ahead of Nick Chubb. Devontae Adams was the last pick in the first round. Then in the second round, Najee Harris with the second pick in the second round. I feel like every single mock draft that I do, Najee Harris is being drafted earlier and earlier, which, again, I understand that the guy is going to get volume, but guess what? Volume alone doesn't guarantee success for a running back in fantasy football. You still need an offensive line. We saw it with Joe Mixon last year. We saw it with Todd Gurley in 2016. Just volume alone won't get it done. So to me, that's a little bit of a risky pick that early on. Stephon Diggs there, good value with the third pick in the second round. Then Antonio Gibson, again, good value. DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley. I was really hoping Calvin Ridley might fall to me, but I guess it wasn't meant to be, because him going in the middle of the second round, I think that's tremendous, tremendous value. You could argue that he's going to be the wide receiver one, like literally right outside the tier one group of Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and Tyreek Hill. Without Julio Jones, he's going to have so many opportunities. Then you see Joe Mixon and DK Metcalf. So right now, my options, again, I was really hoping I could land Calvin Ridley. As far as running back is concerned, I'm looking at potentially a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe a Chris Carson, and wide receiver-wise, probably Keenan Allen would be at the top of my list for PPR purposes. Then maybe if he falls to us afterwards in the third round, somebody like an A.J. Brown, somebody like a Justin Jefferson. So right now, I'm going to go with the guy that I think is, again, you can see that my mentality here is based on the PPR type of scoring. I'm going Keenan Allen as my wide receiver one, because the guy is going to get target after target after target. The volume is going to be crazy, in my opinion. I think he's also, again, somebody that's undervalued. And then in the third round, I think I'm going to have options. I think potentially A.J. Brown falls to us, maybe Justin Jefferson or Chris Carson. I think one of those three guys will be available for us, and it's going to be a pretty easy selection. I don't want to necessarily right now take DeAndre Swift, this early in the third round. If it was closer towards the end of the third round, maybe even the fourth round, then yes, I would be taking DeAndre Swift. But, right now, I do want to get another wide receiver, another high-end wide receiver, because there's some really good value at the position, even though Justin Jefferson and Chris Carson both just went. So, hey, maybe we won't get our wish in terms of getting Jefferson or Carson or A.J. Brown. We'll see. If we don't get A.J. Brown here, then I was going to go with Darren Waller, which I mentioned Darren Waller. Then you see Kyle Pitts being drafted with the second pick in the third round. For God's sakes, what the hell is going on here with Kyle Pitts stock? Let me quickly just draft A.J. Brown, so we have that taken care of. But Kyle Pitts with the second pick in the third round, ahead of Darren Waller, ahead of T.J. Hawkinson. What in God's name are you thinking with that selection? That makes zero sense. That just reminds me of, a couple of days ago in our auction draft breakdown, Kyle Pitts goes for like $45. Travis Kelce had gone for like $50. Kittle had gone for $33. Waller had gone for like $30. It's absolutely insane. Yes, I get it, folks. You're enamored with T.J. Hawkinson, the guys, or with, Kyle Pitts. He's a physical specimen. Julio Jones isn't there anymore. But look, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage, I think both those guys are going to get their opportunities. And then Kyle Pitts, he's a rookie tight end, folks. Historically, you look at year after year after year, it's a position where guys don't just come into the league and get 1,000 yards receiving. Whereas there's a pretty damn good chance that if, Darren Waller and George Kittle play the entire season, they're going to have 1,000+ yards receiving. Whereas with Kyle Pitts, even if he plays a full 17 games, I can't say that as confidently. So to me, that's just a pick that I had to comment on. Then, like I said, we obviously took A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is our wide receiver too. I'm perfectly fine with. Then Darren Waller, again, I had mentioned Darren Waller is the guy that I would have gone with if A.J. Brown was selected, pretty much getting a wide receiver at the tight end spot. He is my tight end number 2. CeeDee Lamb, his stock has kind of gone up with the Amari Cooper pup list news. But again, right now, there's so many players starting camp on the pup list. That doesn't mean that he's not going to be ready to go by week 1. So again, I do think CeeDee Lamb's ADP will kind of go down a little bit once we get closer to August, September. Then DeAndre Swift, Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery. So a run on running backs. There was a lot of value at that position, so makes sense. Afterwards, finally, George Kittle, Allen Robinson at the end of the 3rd round. Very, very good value, followed by Josh Jacobs. I don't necessarily love Josh Jacobs in PPR scoring, again, because Kenyon Drake is there, because his role in that offense, I think, is at a bigger risk than it has ever been, considering Drake's presence. The offensive line takes a hit. I quickly do want to look at the running backs here because, right now we're in a situation where obviously we went Alvin Kamara first, then Keenan Allen, A.J. Brown. We decided to go wide receiver heavy because I didn't necessarily want to take DeAndre Swift or David Montgomery at that point in time, since Chris Carson had already been drafted. And if Chris Carson was there, he probably would have been my pick. So right now we're in a situation where we got to decide what we're going to do at our RB2 spot. Unless there's some great value at the wide receiver position, I'm potentially going to be looking at guys like, I was going to say a Darrell Henderson, but he just got drafted. Robert Woods just got drafted. So it's becoming pretty interesting. We finally have our first quarterback off the board in the 4th round with the 5th pick, Patrick Mahomes. Again, I'm on record saying that I believe that's how it should be, but the majority of leagues, you're going to see like Patrick Mahomes being drafted in the 2nd round. So the idea with the quarterback position, I say this every single season in fantasy football when I just put out, these videos in terms of how to succeed in drafts. You don't want to pay up top premium, draft capital for a quarterback that is already a big name and a quarterback that's already like, top 2, top 3. He's got an MVP like a couple years prior. That's what Patrick Mahomes is. That's what, Josh Allen is. That's what Kyler Murray is. You want to go ahead and get the discount quarterback that's kind of coming off a down season. And, potentially you want to find the guy that hasn't broken out yet. So you want to go after the Josh Allen of last season. So right now, Lamar Jackson is a great example that I continuously go to in terms of a guy that's coming off a down year per his standards that has huge upside and that I really, really like. Right now, the way this thing is playing out, I'm not going to be looking at the quarterback position. There's just way, 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 way too great of value at other positions. I'm looking at Cooper Kupp. I'm looking at TJ Hawkinson in the 5th round. Right now, I'm really tempted by Cooper Kupp, but hey, my choice just got a lot easier because Cooper Kupp and Deontay Johnson were both just drafted. That's kind of unfortunate. So right now, we've got a decision to make. Do we go running back? Do we go somebody like a TJ Hawkinson, who you see he's ranked a lot lower, but I'm not gonna wait all that much. I'm just gonna probably go Myles Gaskin here. He's my next best available running back, ahead of everybody else here. It probably would have been better to go with a running back in the 3rd round, but A.J. Brown was a value that was just too tempting to pass up. So I'm going to go Myles Gaskin here. And then, looking at the wide receivers, I could have gone like a Tyler Lockett. I could have gone with a T. Higgins. There's a lot of examples. Chris Godwin, but why take Chris Godwin now when I can get Antonio Brown like 10 rounds later? Not exactly 10 rounds, but you get the point. DJ Moore was also another option who goes right after my selection of Myles Gaskin. Then you see Mark Andrews. Now all of a sudden I'm sweating. TJ Hawkinson not getting to us, but no, that won't be the case. I'm taking him right now. Forget about these rankings at the tight end position for ESPN. They are criminally low. So we're getting TJ Hawkinson. We're running with it. Lamar Jackson was selected with the 1st pick in the 5th round. Again, you could have argued that I could have gone that direction, just gone like Lamar Jackson and then TJ Hawkinson. But then our running back position would have kind of been a little bit questionable to say the least. Now, I could have, hoped that maybe Damian Harris falls to us, but again, this is PPR scoring, so Damian Harris doesn't exactly have all that much upside there. So that was the problematic thing. Maybe you could argue Mike Davis, but we'll see. Right now, Tyler Lockett is selected after our pick of TJ Hawkinson. So Lockett goes with the 4th pick in the 5th round. Very, very good value in my opinion. Kareem Hunt is also a sneaky, running back that doesn't have obviously the highest ceiling, but a decent floor. A guy that when you're desperate, you just put him in the flex position. Even can be just a low end RB2, especially when you have somebody like an Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook as your stud RB1. So that was another direction that we could potentially go in. We'll see. Maybe he falls to us. Maybe we get lucky. Obviously, we still have 14 picks to go, so that's a little bit up in the air. But Kenny Golladay after Tyler Lockett, then Brandon Ayuk, then Jamar Chase. I continue to say it. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, again, are two guys that should probably be going one right after the other, which you actually see here. So I'm impressed that, again, that's the situation that it should be. I like both of them to kind of run this offense. Tyler Boyd, unfortunately, will probably be kind of like that odd man out. But after T. Higgins, Cortland Sutton, Juju Smith-Schuster, Josh Allen. So Josh Allen with the 11th pick in the 5th round, all things considered, probably pretty good value. Odell Beckham, last pick in the 5th round. Then Kyler Murray, 1st pick in the 6th round. That is tremendous, tremendous value there. One of the best value picks in this entire draft. Then you see Michael Thomas with the 2nd pick in the 6th round. So I will say this right now. Obviously, Michael Thomas's value has not been properly updated, or I should say downgraded in this example after his injury, because he's going to miss, a month and a half, it seems like, of the NFL season. And if that's the case, the guy should not be drafted before like the 8th, 9th, 10th round. And sure, he's a nice luxury pick that you can stash away, but you need to, I think right now it's still a little bit too early. You still kind of need to potentially find a flex play. You need to find some other depth. If it was in the 8th, 9th round, then we're having a different conversation. But right now, just a little bit too early, in my opinion, for Michael Thomas. Now, we're back on the clock, so we could potentially go running back. We do need a flex play at this point in time as well. I'm looking at wide receiver options. I'm looking at running back options. Wide receiver, I don't necessarily love anybody here. I could wait a good amount of time and I think potentially get Antonio Brown later on. I'm looking at running back. And to me, the highest upside guy right now, because this, again, is PPR based, is Mike Davis. James Robinson is going to lose that role kind of to Travis Etienne. So I'm going Mike Davis here. Again, I don't think he's going to have nearly the same upside that he did in Carolina when Christian McCaffrey went out, just because, well, Atlanta and Carolina don't utilize the running back position the same way, because for God's sakes, Atlanta has Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley and now Kyle Pitts and Russell Gage and previously Julio Jones. So you get the point. Mike Davis is probably going to be more so of a mid to low end RB2. I think that's probably best case scenario, because again, I don't see him getting 1,000 yards rushing either. But, I'm not complaining. I've got Alvin Kamara. I decided to get some depth afterwards with Gaskin and Mike Davis. We're on the clock again. So Javonte Williams, Jerry Jeudy, Will Fuller, and then Justin Herbert go. I could go running back again, honestly, with Damian Harris. I'm looking at, potentially we can go quarterback here, but I think it's still a little bit too early. I like someone like a Matthew Stafford. I like somebody, like a Jalen Hurts due to the upside. I'll probably just go Antonio Brown here. I'm a big fan. I think that, again, at this point in time, we draft him in the 7th round. Probably could have gotten him in the 8th round, in the 9th round. But I didn't want to risk it. And to me right now, he was just a guy that I have valued so much higher, that he's just someone that I have to draft. I think I'd be perfectly fine having him as a flex instead of a Mike Davis, and then kind of have Mike Davis as a stash as a depth piece. So right now we're going to be looking at the quarterback position to kind of wrap things up. And other players here that are kind of going off the board. You see Robbie Anderson, you see Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, who just got an extension. His case is pretty interesting. Even though he got an extension, obviously Washington likes what they have in him, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee success because there's so many other options in that passing attack. Dallas Goedert, I really like the value, 7th pick in the 7th round, but it's another situation where if Zach Ertz doesn't leave Philadelphia, then Dallas Goedert, his value isn't nearly as much as if he were the only guy. Now, I still think he's, going to be like a top 10 tight end, but without Zach Ertz, I think he's kind of knocking on the door of a top 5 tight end, which is a big difference at the tight end position. Afterwards, you see Melvin Gordon, Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks actually, with the 9th pick in the 7th round, very good value because it looks like Deshaun Watson will probably be back. So DJ Shark, Tyler Boyd, James Robinson, Michael Gallup, Deebo Samuel, Aaron Rodgers, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, a run on quarterbacks, Tom Brady, Marquise Brown, Ryan Tannehill, Joe Burrow. And, speaking of, I mentioned it, speaking of the quarterback position and Deshaun Watson, right now, a lot of platforms are having him criminally underrated. Now, whether he plays or doesn't play, that's obviously not up to me. That's a separate conversation. But right now, the signs are pointing towards him playing. And if he does, the dude is a top 5, top 6 quarterback. So I'm just going to go ahead and take him here. It's a great value pick, in my opinion. I can easily back it up later on with a second quarterback. So I'm not worried about that at all. I got Deshaun Watson there. After that, you saw Jarvis Landry, Damian Harris, Raheem Mostert, and Henry Ruggs. So let's, again, look at some of these other positions here that are pretty good value. I'm going to look at the running back position. Probably should have gone Damian Harris, honestly, first and then Deshaun Watson, but I got a little bit excited. So I'm looking at other options. I still really like Ronald Jones. I think he is the running back to own out of the Tampa Bay backfield. So I'm going to add him here. And again, just getting depth at the running back position. And right now, the last 2 things I'm going to get, we draft Deshaun Watson here. I'm going to get a backup quarterback. So that backup quarterback will probably be somebody like a Jalen Hurts, somebody like a Matthew Stafford. Hopefully one of those 2 guys is available for us. And then we're going to wrap this thing up. Other players that, we could target, we could consider Marvin Jones. I really like his current value. Just switching over to the wide receiver position in general, Darnell Mooney. He was going to be the wide receiver 2 for the Chicago Bears, regardless of what happened with Anthony Miller. But now, even more so to some extent, Russell Gage there over at 152. That is ludicrous. The guy should not be ranked that low. I'd rather have Russell Gage than Darnell Mooney. So he's somebody that I'm probably going to queue up, and we're going to go ahead and add him to our squad. And then we're going to get that backup quarterback. So actually, let's get our backup quarterback first. So right now, I'm going to go with our backup quarterback. And since we already kind of have a risky pick in Deshaun Watson, I'm not going to double down on the risk at the quarterback position with Jalen Hurts. I'm going to get somebody that I think is a lot safer in Matthew Stafford. And then our last pick will be Russell Gage, and we'll kind of wrap this thing up. But right now, I really like the way our team was kind of constructed. Deshaun Watson is one of those sneaky picks that you could get later on before his ADP just skyrockets in like the blink of an eye to like a 6th, 7th rounder. Right now, cheap, and you're basically paying nothing for a top 5 type of quarterback. Running back position, I wish we could have gotten Chris Carson in the 3rd round. I would have felt a lot better. Same with or we could have just gotten Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the 2nd round, but I believe he was sniped from us. So here, I'm going to go Russell Gage. Wide receiver position, on the flip side, I feel very good about the wide receiver position. Keenan Allen, A.J. Brown, and Antonio Brown, Russell Gage. So I like that. Quarterback position, again, we get a backup in Matthew Stafford. That's a lot safer than Deshaun Watson. That's the way I would suggest doing it. And then I like our depth on the bench. Ronald Jones, again, Russell Gage, Matthew Stafford, Antonio Brown. We have Mike Davis as a flex. We don't even need to play him at the flex position. I would be perfectly fine. I would argue we could play 3 of our bench pieces as a flex and be perfectly fine, either Brown, either Jones, or Russell Gage. So right now, given the circumstance, I think the only position that we is a little bit, glaringly weak is the running back position after Alvin Kamara. But, drafting somebody like an Alvin Kamara kind of allows you that benefit of waiting a little bit longer at the running back position. So I'm not going to be too critical. I'm going to give this like a B plus type of grade. But hey, let me know in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? I'll make sure to answer them all. And if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.